Aloha and welcome to Spirit Chat Radio. Today I'm going to be talking about clairaudience. I'm going to be talking about that because I had one of my mentors that mentors for me with my group of mentees had a question about clairaudience, and it was a question that I've been asked before, so I thought that I would clarify that because I think when you're not understanding that ability, it can be frustrating and it can cause you blocks and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be talking about 4 things that you definitely should know about when we're talking about being clairaudient. And during that process, you'll easily be able to tell if you yourself are clairaudient. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I did want to give you guys an update on my Empowered Empath program, the big empath class that will be coming out for Empath You. And that I just finished with all the material and I am recording, which means I'm very, very close to getting this released. And so it's super, super exciting. I wanted to let you know that I had a vision in mind when I started to this empath class, and it's turned into something even better than I could have imagined. If you're struggling as an empath, I am super, super proud of how that this has turned out. I really, truly think that you will have all the tools and all the material that you need to really kind of figure out this gift and learn how to feel healthier and happier and just better as an empath. I'm really standing behind this class. I'm super happy. I've not seen anything like this class that I've worked on. I've researched and looked just to see, and I've not seen anything like this out there. So it's a very unique, super cool class that's really beneficial. So the flip side of that too is I want to make sure that whether you are or are not on my empath list or my newsletter list, you definitely want to make sure that either number one, you get on my email list, and you can do that by going to empowered-empath.com and making sure that there's only one way to get on my email list right now, and it's kind of, you have to get the download to the Energy Vampires book. If you don't want the book, just give it to a friend or throw it in the trash, whatever. But anyways, that's a way to get on my email list. And if you're on my email list, great, watch for that. Because I have put so much stuff in this class, it turned into a much larger class than I had originally anticipated. And being that happened, the class is going to be more than I had originally had planned on as far as price point goes. However, I'm always very committed to my following and my newsletter list, my people. You guys are the most important thing, which is why I'm creating the class. And I'm going to be offering a real good discount the minute that I open it up. So if you're wanting to save some money, and it's a pretty decent discount, you will definitely want to make sure that once I launch it, once I talk about it, you get in on the ground floor, because I will be raising the price shortly after launch. So definitely something that you're going to want to be aware of. And there's another thing that I want to talk about, because it leads right into this subject I want to talk about here, which is my psychic ability class. As I said in the last podcast, I am offering $200 off that class right now, because we are kind of giving it a facelift. And by giving it a facelift, I mean we are making it different looking, new slides and all that. A lot of the same content. There will be some new content, but it's moving to Empath You. And so as that class is moving, we're going to update it. We're going to make it look pretty, add some new material. And I'm allowing, for those of you who have always wanted to be in the class, I'm allowing a pretty substantial discount, which is $200 off. I've never done that before, ever, not ever on Black Friday at all. That will be ending soon. So that is a really good deal. And I'm doing a super low monthly payment of like $35, which is crazy. And if you get in this the psychic ability class, 2 things. 1, my empath class and my psychic ability class work together. So you're not going to get material in either one. And 2, once it's moved over, it's going to go back to regular price as well. So it's an opportunity for you to kind of get in and as looking at the old version. But you will, if you get in, you'll have access to all the new material. That's the cool thing. Anyways, we've had a lot of people taking advantage of that special. So I hope to see you join us. They've been super happy that they've been able to get such a good deal. So let's talk about clairaudience, because that's why we're here today. There's some stuff that I wanted to clear up on clairaudience, and I felt like it was very important. I had a question that was asked to one of my mentors, and it was something that I felt like I needed to elaborate on. If I feel like I need to elaborate on something, I always end up doing a podcast, so here we are. So clairaudience. First of all, what is clairaudience? Clairaudience is the ability to hear spirits with your outer ear. Spirits, spirit guides, angels, loved ones, whatever. It's the ability to hear things in the spiritual realm or people or whatever with the outer ear. What does the outer ear mean? That means you hear them with your physical ear, like you hear me talking to you right now. Instead of hearing it in your head, like you're recalling a conversation, you actually hear it just like you're hearing me. And so that's what clairaudience is. This is an ability that some people have and some people don't, which brings us to the first thing I want to talk about with clairaudience, the first thing I feel like you should know. And just FYI, these are some of the types of things we go over in the my classes and in the psychic ability class. But I just get into a lot more detail on some other things as well. But it still is something you need to know. Clairaudience is not something you can develop. It's an ability that you're either born with or you're not. You either have it or you don't. And most people, I feel like, don't realize this, or they're under the impression that somehow it can be developed, and that somehow this is like what you're supposed to do, or this is how spirit communication is kind of working. And they try with all their might, and they feel like a failure, and they feel frustrated that they just don't know what they're doing. They're on the wrong path. They just feel like they can't do it. They're not accomplishing anything, which is not cool, because you absolutely, even if you're not born with clairaudience, which is one of the rarer clairs, it's not something that a lot of people possess the ability to do. It's on the rarer side. More rare. Is rarer in a word? It's on the more rare side. So it's not amongst the norm. And so I hate to see people who are super excited to develop their psychic senses get discouraged or feel frustrated and or block themselves because they've now questioned their ability to connect with spirits or their spirit guide or connect with their psychic abilities at all. And so that can cause people a problem. If you're wondering if you are clairaudient, most people would know, especially by the time they're listening to this podcast, because there's a very easy way to tell. And if you don't know, I'm going to give you this very easy way to tell. You will have experienced it at least some point in your life before now. Most people will have experienced it when they were a child, when they were maybe a teenager, when they were a young adult. But usually you're not in your 30s, 40s, or 50s as a clairaudient person without ever having experienced clairaudience. And so at least 1 or 2 or 3 times in your life, you will have heard something. You will have heard something talk to you, or someone talk to you, or some type of communication when there's nobody there with your outer ear, like I'm talking to you now. And here's the kicker with that, because if you're still going, well, I'm not really sure, maybe I did hear something at some point in time, you will not be able to deny, and you won't really be questioning if you heard a spirit talk to you, because the tone that's delivered when you hear something clairaudient is very, very different than the tone you're used to in the physical world. So every sound and noise has a tone, right, that you're used to. And my voice has a tone. Whatever you're doing, whatever's going on around you, they all have different levels and tones to them. When you hear something clairaudiently, the tone of what the spirit or the voice or whatever is super crisp. It's almost like, you've adjusted, I don't even know the things, or the treble or the bass and whatever on your stereo or whatever, your radio. And it's like you make the tone super sharp. The tone is super crisp. And it is such an odd thing. It is so different than what you normally hear that you will be like looking around like, what was that? Like it may not be a loud one, it may be a quiet one, but it will definitely grab your attention. So the first thing to know is clairaudience is not something you're just going to develop out of nowhere. It's a gift you're born with or you're not. And that's the same with a lot of the psychic senses. Again, go over this in my class and go over way more stuff than this, but you should know that all the clairs are not something that everybody possesses. Everybody does have the ability to develop their psychic senses, and they have access to them. But in what combination that you have access to, what your specific talents are, is always going to vary from person to person. It's different for everybody. You may have a lot of them, you may only have a little bit of them. Your combination may be entirely different than your friend. Your friend may have 2, you may have 3, and you may have complete different ones. You may only have 1. Doesn't really matter because all you need is 1, And to the degree that you can develop these abilities is also going to vary because I tell everybody all the time, it's like everybody's born with the ability to play sports. You can do stuff, but to the degree that you can do the sports and, you can do stuff is going to vary. So not everybody's going to be able to become professional. So you can develop them, but you can only develop the gifts that you're gifted with. So it's really important to learn what those gifts are. And for clairaudience, it's pretty easy to tell whether you have it or not. Anyways, so that's the first thing that you should know. The second thing that you should know is about spirit communication, because a lot of people are under the impression that spirits like to talk to you in the same way that physical people like to talk to you. That if they're going to, communicate with you, they're going to communicate how you're comfortable communicating in the spiritual world. And that's not true. That is not their communication tool of choice. Their communication tool of choice is telepathy. They like to speak and talk to you telepathically. That is their communication tool of choice. And so I feel like people get really hung up on how they feel like that they should be talking to spirits, or how they feel like the whole process should be working, which is essentially the problem with spirit communication and psychic ability stuff. When you're trying to develop spirit communication stuff and you're trying to develop psychic senses, there's a lot of misconceptions or assumptions that people make on how the process works, because you hear about clairaudience all the time. You hear about clairvoyance all the time. So you assume that people are going to see and hear spirits and if you want to develop them, you have the ability to, and you potentially will be able to get to that point at some point in time. And if not, you're failing. Entirely not true. That's entirely not true. So they don't like to communicate audibly more often than not. And there's a reason for that, because it can be very, very startling. It can be something that it kind of can shake you to the core of your being, because the tone of what they're trying to get through as it goes through both dimensions it's not like filtered in a way that, our physical stuff is. And so it can be startling. It's just not their primary way that they communicate. When you're on the other side, when you're astral traveling, when you, you quote unquote dream about someone, you're having spirit contact, you'll notice that you're never, hardly ever talking to them like I'm talking to you right now. It's almost always telepathically. So now that doesn't mean that, well, for instance, I'm clairaudient too. This is the other thing that I want to talk about, which is kind of not among the numbers, but I am clairaudient, not my idea of how I want to communicate with spirits, not my favorite choice. And it's not something I utilize all the time. It's definitely not something I want to do more of because, again, it's not super awesome. It's not like how that you probably imagine it in your head. So it's something that I would just prefer to be the other way. Anyways, so that's kind of my experience with it. Your belief system. This ties into the spirit communication part that I was just talking about. People get very stuck in the common belief that common physical belief that spirits will communicate with you in a physical manner. So, like I said, that they show up visually so you can see them and they communicate with you audibly so you can hear them. But these are physically based beliefs. What actually is happening when you learn about your psychic senses and you learn how to work with any of your clairs and you learn how to work with spirit communication is you essentially train yourself to tune into another dimension. You train yourself to tune into the spiritual realm. So it's kind of like they're not coming to your house, you're going to their house. It's the belief system that people really create around this is that there's somehow going to be physical contact and stuff with spirits, and whether they're touching you or you can see them or, that's just not really how that works. Like I said, in order to communicate, you have to train yourself how to tune in to another dimension. So again, that comes with learning and gaining the knowledge that I teach in my classes. It's learning to alter your current belief system and really learn and gain the knowledge on how these things actually work. It's so weird because I feel like there's a lot of information out there, but a lot of assumptions that are incorrect. And it's funny, just so that you know, before I get into number 4, I've looked at some stuff when people have contacted me on Facebook, asked me about this, asked me about that, said, have you heard this? Have you heard that? I get that a lot in my spirit groups. And I'll look it up to see what's out there. And it is mind-boggling, some of the bad information that's out there that people, you can tell immediately, or I can tell immediately because I teach this. When somebody is trying to explain to you clairaudience or clairvoyance and how it works and all this kind of stuff, when they truthfully have never experienced it and they don't know what they're talking about. Yet they claim to be experts in the field and they claim to know all this stuff and it looks really good on paper. But if you are clairaudient, if you are like I am, it's very easy to tell when someone's trying to teach you stuff that they really have not experienced. I always teach from experience. So that might be the difference, but it's really interesting. There's a lot of stuff out there that is just not true, and then I feel like that causes a lot of problems for people. Which brings us to number 4. Training is necessary at some point in time. If you are wanting to develop your spirit communication skills, your psychic ability skills, your empath stuff, at some point, most students will max out their self-taught capabilities. And I see this a lot in my groups and whatnot. They max out their self-taught capabilities, and then they get stuck and need to move forward with more focused training. But then they're like, okay, I don't have the money to do this, or I don't want to usually it's like, I don't have the money, or their priorities lie somewhere else or whatever. But then they are continuously asking questions and wanting you to fix this issue for them, when they're not understanding that it's not the stuff on the internet and books that you're reading and whatever. They're really, really great to gain some knowledge with. And I highly recommend doing that if you're interested in any of these things that I'm talking about. But at some point, they're not classes and they're not training. So you need classes and you need training to be exposed to restructuring your belief system and learning in more detail how things actually work. And when you start getting proper training, you will quickly discover that the blocks that you had in the first place were usually just knowledge that you didn't have any knowledge past those blocks. So like I said, I see people, a lot of people get really frustrated thinking that clairaudience, or that, that they just don't have a gift, that they're like, oh, I've trained so hard and I'm not seeing any results. But what the results that they're looking for are not lying in their actual gift, which may be their empath ability. It may be claircognizance, which is super popular. Super common. And so there's a lot of other gifts that people definitely tend to overlook when they're wanting to develop their psychic senses, that are way more common, that you just kind of glaze over and they go, oh yeah, but I'm not noticing, I'm not hearing and seeing these things. And it's like, yeah, but you're gaining all this information from other ways of how it really works in the spiritual realm, but you're not really paying attention to that because you haven't really learned how it really works in the spiritual realm. You know what I mean? So you've really learned how it works in the physical realm, not the same thing. It's just definitely not the same thing. So if you want to develop these abilities, you have to know, one, is it ability this kind of goes for all clairs, really. Do you have the ability or do you not? Were you born with it or were you not? Because if you weren't born with it, it's most likely something you're not going to develop. And for those of you who are thinking, well, I never had this ability before, whatever ability it may be, but all of a sudden I developed it. No, you didn't all of a sudden develop it. You may not have noticed you had it, but you were born with it. So again, you can only develop abilities that you're born with. It's learning to figure out what those abilities are. You usually need classes and training to figure those out, because I noticed, again, if you go scouring the internet, it's not clear enough for you to really understand and get a grasp on that. It's about learning spirit communication and how that actually works, and what their tools of choice are and what your tools of choice are with them. And you're most likely not going to coax them over into your physically based tools. It's just not where they're comfortable. It's just kind of not how it works. And your belief system, you really need to pump up the knowledge in your belief system and restructure your belief system, because like I'd mentioned, there's so much info out there that is just inaccurate and vague, and people who don't even know what they're talking about, but yet they're putting tons of articles out there, which brings us to proper training. If this is something you're serious about, at some point, you'll max out your self-taught capabilities. At some point, you'll need to focus forward. And if that's your choice, that's what you want to do. And again, I'm doing that class. I even have a payment plan of like $35 a month right now. But it's not going to be on for a long period of time, just because I move stuff over. So hopefully this cleared up some questions for you. If you have questions, concerns, or comments, you can post them below. I try to watch for 24 hours. And also, if you like this podcast, or want to know when the empath stuff is out, you definitely want to follow. You want to click the follow thing, all that stuff. And so hopefully you found it helpful, and hopefully that cleared up some stuff for you, and hopefully you take advantage of this really great special that I'm doing. And I hope to see you in class. But stay tuned. I have some really cool stuff coming up with that empath stuff soon. Okay, have the most amazing day. Aloha.
The Virginia Lottery has 3 new Let's Make a Deal games, which means 3 ways to play your favorite game show. The Let's Make a Deal Print and Play has a top prize of $30,000. The Scratcher has a top prize of $100,000. And the online game could win you up to $500,000. Play Let's Make a Deal from the Virginia Lottery in stores, in the app, or online today. Visit valottery.com/deal. Let's Make a Deal, licensed by Fremantle, all rights reserved.
Introducing Instagram Teen Accounts, a new way to keep your teens safer as they grow, like making sure they've got the right gear for riding.
Knee pads.
Check.
And helmet.
Done. See you, Dad.
New Instagram Teen Accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.